Have you ever felt something so deeply, yet couldn't put it into words? Something that challenges everything you thought you knew about yourself and love. Today, we're diving into a story that's messy, raw, and heartbreakingly real, a tale of friendship, confusion, and unexpected feelings. By the end of this video, you'll understand why sometimes the hardest truths to face are the ones closest to us. So, if you've ever questioned who you are or what you feel, this one's for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to your channel name, where we explore stories that stay with you long after the screen turns off. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now, let me tell you about Alex. On the surface, he's your typical guy, popular, funny, kind-hearted. Everyone loves him, but beneath that confident exterior lies a storm of emotions he can't quite explain. Growing up in a world where love was always defined as boy meets girl, Alex never questioned his identity, until now. Enter Ryan, Alex's best friend since high school. Ryan is quieter, more introspective, and openly gay. Together, they form one of those friendships that seem unbreakable, balancing each other out, sharing secrets late at night, laughing over inside jokes only they understand. But lately, there's been something different about the way Alex feels around Ryan. Something he doesn't want to admit, even to himself. As their bond grows stronger, small moments start to add up, lingering glances, casual touches, and conversations that feel just a little too intimate. And then comes the moment when Ryan mentions dating someone new. Suddenly, Alex feels something unfamiliar bubbling inside him, jealousy. But why? Isn't he supposed to be straight? This is just the beginning of a journey filled with twists, tension, and revelations you won't see coming. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll have all the answers, and maybe even some questions of your own. Let's get started. Alex had always prided himself on being a good friend. He was the guy who showed up when it mattered, the one who listened without judgment and supported Ryan through every heartbreak, every disappointment. But lately, something inside him felt off. It wasn't just that Ryan was talking about dating again, it was how Alex reacted to it. The tightness in his chest, the way his jaw clenched when Ryan mentioned someone new, the irrational urge to change the subject or shut it down entirely. Ryan, for his part, seemed oblivious to Alex's inner turmoil. Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he noticed the way Alex hesitated before responding, the forced smiles, the slightly too long silences. Ryan was perceptive like that. He'd always been able to read Alex better than anyone else. And while Alex tried to brush off these strange feelings, telling himself it was just protectiveness, just friendship, he couldn't shake the nagging sense that something deeper was at play. The cracks started small. A missed call here, an awkward conversation there. Alex found himself canceling plans with other friends just so he could spend more time with Ryan, even if it meant sitting in silence watching TV. At first, he told himself it was because Ryan needed him, but deep down, he knew it was something else. There were moments when their hands brushed accidentally, and Alex would pull away like he'd been burned, his heart racing for reasons he didn't want to examine too closely. Ryan started noticing. Of course he did. Ryan always noticed. "You've been acting weird lately," he said one evening as they sat on the couch, the glow of the TV casting shadows across the room. Alex froze, caught off guard by the question. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice higher pitched than usual. Ryan shrugged, but there was a flicker of concern in his eyes. "I don't know. You seem distant. Like you're not really here." Alex laughed it off, deflecting with a joke about work stress and how tired he'd been lately. But the truth was, he wasn't really there, not fully. Part of him was stuck somewhere else, wrestling with thoughts and emotions he couldn't untangle. He wanted to tell Ryan what was going on, but how could he explain something he didn't understand himself? How could he admit that the line between friendship and something more had started to blur? Then came the night that changed everything. They were hanging out at Ryan's apartment, the kind of lazy evening where nothing and everything felt important. Ryan was talking about someone he'd met recently, someone who seemed genuinely interested in him. Alex listened quietly, nodding along, but inside, he was unraveling. Every word Ryan said felt like a punch to the gut, though he couldn't say why. When Ryan joked about maybe bringing this person around sometime, Alex snapped. "Why do you always chase people who don't deserve you?" He blurted out, the words sharper than he intended. Ryan blinked, taken aback. What's that supposed to mean? He asked, his tone wary. Alex opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, unsure of what to say. The room filled with an uncomfortable silence, heavy with things unsaid. I'm just saying, Alex finally muttered, avoiding Ryan's gaze, you deserve better than whatever random hookup you think is gonna make you happy. Ryan stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he sighed. If you've got something to say, Alex, just say it. Stop dancing around it. But Alex couldn't. Not then. Instead, he mumbled something about needing air and left, leaving Ryan sitting alone in the quiet apartment. On the drive home, Alex gripped the steering wheel tightly, his mind racing. What was wrong with him? Why had he gotten so angry over something so trivial? And why did the thought of Ryan seeing someone else hurt so much? That night, Alex lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Ryan. Are you okay? It read. Alex stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry about earlier. He hit send, but the guilt gnawed at him. He hadn't been fine. He still wasn't. Something was shifting between them, something neither of them could ignore anymore. Whatever it was, Alex knew it wouldn't stay buried forever. The tension between Alex and Ryan lingered like a storm cloud, heavy and suffocating. For days, they avoided each other, not outright, but in the subtle ways people do when something unspoken hangs in the air. Texts went unanswered for hours instead of minutes. Plans were made with vague excuses about being busy. When they did see each other, their conversations felt stilted, as if both were tiptoeing around an invisible line neither wanted to cross. But avoidance only works for so long. Eventually, the pressure builds, and something has to give. It happened one Friday night, after a week of awkward silences and forced smiles. Alex had been holed up in his apartment, replaying that argument over and over in his head. He hated how he'd acted, hated the look on Ryan's face when he walked out. But more than anything, he hated the confusion swirling inside him, feelings he couldn't name, let alone explain. Frustrated and sleepless, he grabbed his phone and opened a blank text to Ryan. Hey, asterisk he typed, then deleted it. Sorry again about the other night. Deleted again. Finally, he settled on, can we talk? Asterisk. Ryan replied almost immediately. Sure. Where are you? Asterisk. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at Alex's door. He hesitated before opening it, bracing himself for whatever came next. Ryan stood there, wearing his usual calm demeanor, but Alex could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Hey, Ryan said softly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. They sat down on opposite ends of the couch, the distance between them feeling impossibly wide. Neither spoke at first, the silence stretching until it became unbearable. Finally, Alex broke it. I'm sorry about what I said the other day. I shouldn't have snapped like that. Ryan nodded slowly. Okay. But why did you? You've been acting weird for weeks, Alex. What's going on? Alex opened his mouth, then closed it again. How could he explain something he barely understood himself? He tried anyway. I don't know. I guess I just hate seeing you get hurt. And I worry about you, okay. Maybe too much sometimes. Ryan tilted his head, studying him closely. That doesn't sound like the whole story. It is. Alex insisted, though his voice wavered. Look, you're my best friend, Ryan. Of course I care about you. That's all this is it? Ryan asked quietly. His tone wasn't accusatory, just curious. Like he was trying to piece together a puzzle he didn't quite understand yet. Alex looked away, his chest tightening. What else would it be? Ryan didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back against the couch, his gaze fixed on some invisible point across the room. You tell me, he said finally. Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like there's something you're not saying. The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. He wanted to deny it, to laugh it off or change the subject, but he couldn't. Not this time. The weight of everything he'd been suppressing crashed down on him all at once, and before he knew it, the truth spilled out in a jumbled, messy rush. I don't know what's wrong with me. Alex blurted, his voice trembling. Ever since I realized you might actually move on, I've felt like I'm losing control. It's stupid, I know, because we're friends, and that's all we're supposed to be. But every time I think about you with someone else, it makes me feel sick. And I don't know why. Ryan stared at him, stunned into silence. Alex kept going, unable to stop now that the dam had broken. I keep telling myself it's just protectiveness, just friendship, but it's not. It's something else. Something I don't want to admit because it scares the hell out of me. Because I've always thought I was straight, Ryan. Always. But now, his voice trailed off, the enormity of what he'd just confessed sinking in. He risked a glance at Ryan, whose expression was unreadable. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. When Ryan finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost cautious. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Alex swallowed hard, his throat dry. I don't know what I'm saying. All I know is that I can't ignore this anymore. Whatever this is. Ryan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Wow, okay. He paused, collecting his thoughts. Do you even realize how big this is? You're basically telling me you might have feelings for me, a guy, and you're just now figuring it out. I didn't say that. Alex shot back defensively, though his flushed cheeks betrayed him. I don't know what I feel. All I know is that it's confusing as hell, and I don't know what to do about it. Ryan shook his head, a mix of disbelief and sympathy in his eyes. This isn't something you can just brush off, Alex. If you really mean what you're saying, if you're genuinely questioning your sexuality, you owe it to yourself to figure it out. But you also need to think about what that means for us. Because no matter what happens, things aren't going to go back to the way they were. Alex flinched at the finality in Ryan's words. He hadn't considered that part, the idea that admitting these feelings might change everything. So what are you saying? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. That we can't be friends anymore. I'm not saying that, Ryan replied gently. But I am saying we can't pretend this conversation never happened. This affects both of us, whether we like it or not. The rest of the night passed in a blur. They talked, or rather, Alex talked while Ryan listened, offering quiet support and occasional advice. By the time Ryan left, Alex felt drained but oddly lighter, as if sharing the burden had taken some of its weight off his shoulders. Still, as he watched Ryan walk away, he couldn't shake the fear that this was only the beginning of something far more complicated than either of them could imagine. For the first time in his life, Alex didn't know who he was, or who he wanted to be. And the scariest part, he wasn't sure he'd ever find the answers. The days that followed their conversation were a strange mix of clarity and chaos. Alex felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into an abyss he wasn't sure he wanted to jump into. For the first time in his life, he allowed himself to sit with the feelings he'd been running from, feelings that terrified him, excited him, and confused him all at once. He replayed every interaction with Ryan in his mind, analyzing moments he'd previously dismissed as harmless or insignificant. The casual touches, the lingering eye contact, the way Ryan's laughter seemed to light up entire rooms. Suddenly, everything felt heavier, more charged. Ryan, for his part, gave Alex space. Not because he didn't care, but because he understood how overwhelming this must be. Still, the distance between them was palpable. They texted occasionally, brief exchanges that lacked the warmth and ease they used to share. It wasn't hostility, it was caution. Both of them were treading carefully, unsure of what step to take next. Alex tried to distract himself by throwing himself into work, going to the gym, and hanging out with other friends. But no matter how hard he tried, his thoughts always circled back to Ryan. He couldn't stop wondering what Ryan thought about their conversation. Did he think Alex was crazy? Selfish? Confused beyond hope? Worse yet, did he pity him? One evening, after another restless night, Alex decided to visit a local bookstore, a place he often went to clear his head. As he wandered through the aisles, his eyes landed on a memoir about coming out later in life. Something about it caught his attention, and before he knew it, he was sitting on the floor, flipping through its pages. The author wrote candidly about grappling with their identity, the fear of rejection, and the eventual freedom that came with embracing who they truly were. By the time Alex finished reading, tears blurred his vision. He didn't cry often, but something about those words resonated deeply. For so long, he'd convinced himself that love had one definition, one shape, and anything outside of that was wrong or unnatural. But now, faced with the possibility that his truth might look different, he realized how small and limiting that belief had been. When he got home, he opened his laptop and started searching online. Articles about bisexuality, stories from people who discovered their attraction to the same gender later in life, forums where strangers shared advice and support. Each piece of information chipped away at the walls he'd built around himself, forcing him to confront the reality he'd been avoiding. Maybe he wasn't straight. Maybe he never had been. Or maybe he was somewhere in between. Whatever the answer, he knew one thing for certain: denying it wasn't making him happy. The breakthrough came during a late-night phone call with his older sister, Mia. She'd always been the person Alex turned to when things got tough, and tonight was no exception. At first, he skirted around the topic, talking vaguely about stuff he'd been dealing with. But Mia, sharp as ever, called him out almost immediately. "Okay, spill it," she said. "What's really going on?" Alex hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I think I might have feelings for Ryan." There was a beat of silence on the other end of the line. Then Mia laughed, not mockingly, but warmly. "Wow, took you long enough. What do you mean?" Alex asked, startled. "Oh, come on," Mia replied. "You've been obsessed with that guy since high school. You talk about him constantly, you drop everything to help him, and don't even get me started on how jealous you get whenever he dates someone. I just figured it was a best friend thing. But now what?" Alex prompted, his heart pounding. "Now I'm starting to think maybe it's more than that, for both of you." Her words hit Alex like a lightning bolt. Could she be right? Had Ryan felt something too, all this time? Or was Alex projecting his own confusion onto their friendship? Either way, the thought made his chest ache with longing and fear. Over the next few days, Alex wrestled with whether or not to bring it up with Ryan again. Part of him wanted to run away from the conversation entirely, to bury his feelings and pretend nothing had changed. But another part of him, the part that had spent years denying his true self, knew he couldn't keep living a lie. If he wanted answers, he had to face them head on. Finally, one Saturday afternoon, Alex sent Ryan a text: "Can we meet up? There's something I need to say." Ryan responded within minutes, "Of course. Where?" They agreed to meet at a quiet park near Ryan's apartment. When Alex arrived, Ryan was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking a small pond. He looked up as Alex approached, offering a tentative smile. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," Alex replied, his nerves threatening to overwhelm him. He sat down beside Ryan, leaving a careful gap between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Alex cleared his throat. "I've been doing some thinking," he began, his voice shaky. "About us. About everything." Ryan nodded, his expression unreadable. "Okay. I still don't have all the answers," Alex continued, glancing down at his hands. "But I know I can't keep pretending these feelings don't exist. I care about you, Ryan. More than I should, maybe. And I don't know if that makes me gay, or bi, or whatever, but I do know it scares me. Because I don't want to ruin what we have." Ryan let out a slow breath, his gaze softening. "You're not ruining anything, Alex. This isn't your fault. You're allowed to feel however you feel. But what does that mean for us?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are we still friends? Are we something else? I don't even know what I want anymore." Ryan reached over and placed a gentle hand on Alex's shoulder. "We'll figure it out together," he said firmly. "Whatever happens, we'll take it one step at a time." "Okay." Alex nodded, relief washing over him despite the uncertainty ahead. For the first time in weeks, he felt like he could breathe again. Whatever the future held, he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't face it alone. And maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have to. The days that followed their conversation at the park were tender, uncertain, and filled with moments that hovered somewhere between friendship and something more. Alex and Ryan began meeting regularly, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to walk around the city, but the dynamic between them had shifted in ways neither could fully articulate. There was a new kind of closeness now, tinged with both hope and hesitation. They talked openly about Alex's feelings, dissecting them like puzzle pieces they were trying to fit together. Ryan remained patient, offering support without pushing too hard. He understood how fragile this process was for Alex, who still grappled with doubts and fears. "You don't have to rush," Ryan would say whenever Alex expressed frustration over not having all the answers. This isn't a race. You're allowed to take your time. But taking his time didn't make it any easier. Every interaction left Alex questioning where they stood. Was he crossing lines by leaning into these feelings? Was Ryan holding back because he didn't feel the same way, or worse, because he pitied Alex's confusion? The uncertainty gnawed at him, even as he cherished the growing intimacy between them. One evening, after a long day of work, Alex found himself scrolling through old photos on his phone. Most of them featured Ryan. Goofy selfies from high school, candid shots of them laughing at parties, quiet moments captured during road trips. Looking at those images made his chest tighten, not with sadness but with longing. He realized how much Ryan had always been there, woven into the fabric of his life in ways he'd never fully acknowledged before. That night, unable to sleep, Alex picked up his journal, a habit he'd started recently as a way to sort through his thoughts. As he wrote, words poured out of him faster than he could write them down. I used to think love was simple. Boy meets girl, they fall in love, end of story. But now I realize it's so much messier than that. Love doesn't follow rules or labels, it just is asterisk. And maybe that's what scares me most. Because if I let myself admit I love Ryan, not just as a friend, but as someone I want to build a life with, I'm choosing uncertainty. I'm choosing to step outside everything I thought I knew about myself. Asterisk. He closed the journal, feeling raw but lighter, as though putting his thoughts into words had helped untangle some of the knots inside him. The next morning, Alex decided to invite Ryan over for dinner. Cooking had always been one of his favorite ways to unwind, and he hoped sharing a meal might ease the tension that lingered between them. When Ryan arrived, carrying a bottle of wine and a warm smile, Alex felt a flicker of nervous excitement. They spent the evening talking and laughing like they used to, but there were also quieter moments, glances exchanged across the table, accidental brushes of fingers when reaching for the same dish. By the time dessert rolled around, the air felt charged, heavy with unspoken emotions. You've been doing better, Ryan said softly as they sipped tea on the couch afterward. I can tell. Alex nodded, smiling faintly. Yeah, I'm still figuring things out. But, I think I'm getting closer. To what? Ryan asked, tilting his head slightly. To understanding who I am, Alex replied. And maybe, who I want to be with. Ryan froze, his teacup halfway to his lips. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ryan set the cup down carefully, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Alex swallowed hard, his pulse racing. This was it, the moment he'd been dreading and anticipating for weeks. I think so, he said finally. I think I'm saying, I want to try. With you. Ryan stared at him, his expression a mix of shock and disbelief. Are you sure? He asked, his tone cautious. Because once we cross this line, there's no going back, Alex. If we do this, if we become something more, it changes everything. I know, Alex said firmly. And I'm scared. Terrified, actually. But I'm also tired of running from this. From us. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand why I feel this way, but I do know that being with you feels right. Even if it's messy. Even if it's scary. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes, and for a second, Alex panicked, worried he'd pushed too far. But then Ryan reached out, taking Alex's hand in his own. His grip was steady, grounding. Okay, he whispered. Let's try. Relief washed over Alex, followed quickly by a wave of nerves. What came next? How did two people navigate something this complicated without hurting each other along the way? But as he looked into Ryan's eyes, he realized the answers didn't matter, not right now, anyway. All that mattered was that they were willing to face whatever came next together. Over the following weeks, they tiptoed into uncharted territory. Their relationship evolved slowly, tentatively, marked by late-night conversations, stolen kisses, and the occasional argument about boundaries. Alex continued to wrestle with guilt and doubt, especially when he thought about how drastically his life had changed in such a short amount of time. But Ryan stayed by his side, reminding him that growth wasn't supposed to be easy, and that loving someone meant embracing the messiness, too. Still, questions lingered in the back of Alex's mind. Could they really make this work? Or was he setting himself, and Ryan, up for heartbreak? Only time would tell. But for now, he chose to focus on the present, on the warmth of Ryan's hand in his, the sound of his laughter filling the room, and the quiet certainty that they were building something real, even if it wasn't perfect. As autumn settled in, painting the world in shades of gold and crimson, Alex found himself standing on Ryan's balcony one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Ryan joined him after a while, wrapping an arm around his waist. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan asked quietly. Alex smiled, leaning into the embrace. "Us," he admitted. "How far we've come. And how much farther we have to go." Ryan chuckled softly. "Well, wherever we end up, I'm glad we're doing it together." Alex nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. The road ahead was uncertain, yes, but for the first time in his life, he felt ready to walk it. Whatever challenges lay in store, he knew one thing for sure: he wouldn't face them alone. Months passed, and Alex and Ryan's relationship continued to evolve in ways neither of them could have predicted. It wasn't always smooth, there were moments of doubt, miscommunication, and fear, but through it all, they clung to the foundation of trust and understanding they'd built over years of friendship. Slowly but surely, their bond deepened into something neither had dared to imagine, a love that felt both fragile and unshakable, raw yet profoundly real. One chilly winter evening, as snow began to dust the streets outside, Alex sat on the couch scrolling through his phone when he stumbled upon an article titled, "Coming Out Later in Life: Stories of Rediscovery." The headline caught his attention immediately, and before long, he was engrossed in the stories of people who, like him, had spent years denying or ignoring parts of themselves only to find liberation later on. He read one story in particular about a man named Greg, who described coming out to his family after decades of living what he called a half-life. Greg wrote about how terrifying it had been to finally confront the truth, not just for himself, but for those around him. Yet despite the initial shock and discomfort, he said the decision had ultimately brought him closer to his loved ones. Reading those words made Alex pause. He realized he hadn't fully processed what his journey might mean for the people in his life beyond Ryan. Ryan noticed Alex's quiet reflection from across the room. "What's up?" he asked gently, setting aside the book he'd been reading. Alex hesitated, then turned the phone toward Ryan. "I found this article. It's kind of hitting close to home." Ryan scanned the screen, his brow furrowing slightly. "Yeah, I see why. Does it make you think about telling other people?" Alex nodded slowly. "I guess I've been so focused on figuring things out with us that I haven't really thought about what comes next. What happens when we stop keeping this between us? When my family finds out? Or my friends?" Ryan set the phone down and moved to sit beside Alex, placing a reassuring hand on his knee. "That's a big step. And honestly, it's okay if you're not ready. You don't owe anyone an explanation until you feel comfortable giving one." "I know," Alex replied, running a hand through his hair. "But part of me feels like I'm hiding. Like I'm still afraid of being honest about who I am. And I hate that. I want to be proud of this, for us." Ryan smiled softly, his eyes filled with warmth. "You will be. But remember, there's no timeline for this. Take it at your own pace." The conversation stayed with Alex long after they went to bed that night. For weeks, he wrestled with the idea of coming out to his family and friends. He imagined every possible reaction, from acceptance to rejection, and each scenario left him feeling more conflicted than the last. Finally, he decided to start small. He called his sister, Mia, the person he trusted most in the world. When she answered, her voice bright and cheerful as always, Alex took a deep breath. "Hey, Mia, can we talk? There's something I need to tell you." Mia's tone shifted instantly, becoming serious. "Of course. What's going on?" Alex fumbled for the right words, his heart pounding. "Remember when we talked about Ryan a few months ago?" "Yeah," Mia said cautiously. "Why? Did something happen?" Alex exhaled sharply, steeling himself. "I think I'm falling in love with him." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Mia laughed, a warm, knowing laugh that made Alex's shoulders relax slightly. "Well, duh," she teased. "Took you long enough to admit it." Her response caught Alex off guard, and he couldn't help but chuckle nervously. "Wait, seriously, you're not mad?" "Mad? Why would I be mad?" Mia replied. "All I care about is that you're happy, Alex. And if Ryan makes you happy, then good for you. Honestly, I'm just glad you're finally letting yourself feel this instead of fighting it." Her unconditional support was exactly what Alex needed to hear. Over the next few days, he opened up to a few close friends, each of whom reacted with varying degrees of surprise and encouragement. While some conversations were harder than others, the overwhelming sense of relief he felt afterward was undeniable. With each confession, Alex felt lighter, as though he was shedding layers of shame and fear he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. As spring approached, bringing with it warmer weather and longer days, Alex and Ryan decided to take another step forward. They planned a weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains, a place where they could escape the noise of the city and simply exist together without judgment or interruption. It was during this trip that Alex truly began to embrace the fullness of their relationship. On their second night there, they sat by a crackling fire under a sky blanketed with stars. Ryan leaned against Alex, his head resting on Alex's shoulder. Neither spoke for a while, content to listen to the sound of the flames and the distant rustle of trees swaying in the breeze. "You know," Alex said eventually, breaking the silence, "I never thought I'd get here. To this point. With you." Ryan tilted his head to look up at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I used to think happiness looked a certain way. That it followed rules or expectations. But now I realize it's simpler than that. Happiness is just being with someone who sees you, the real you, and loves you anyway." Ryan smiled, his eyes shining in the firelight. "That's beautiful, Alex. And true. For both of us." They kissed then, softly and tenderly, surrounded by the vastness of the night sky. In that moment, Alex felt a profound sense of peace. For so long, he'd feared losing control of his identity, of his life. But now, sitting here with Ryan, he understood that love wasn't about control, it was about surrender. Surrendering to the unknown, to vulnerability, to the messy beauty of human connection. When they returned home, Alex made a promise to himself, to live authentically, unapologetically, and openly. He knew challenges lay ahead, there would always be people who didn't understand or accept his journey, but he also knew he had Ryan by his side. Together, they had faced the hardest truths within themselves and emerged stronger for it. In the months that followed, Alex continued to grow, not just as a partner, but as a person. He learned to celebrate the complexity of his identity, embracing both the straight and queer parts of himself without apology. Ryan, too, flourished in ways neither of them had anticipated. Their relationship became a testament to the power of honesty, patience, and love. And though their path remained imperfect, as all paths do, they walked it hand in hand, grateful for the messiness that had brought them here. Because in the end, it wasn't perfection they sought. It was authenticity, connection, love. As Alex stood on the balcony one evening, watching the sun set over the city skyline, Ryan joined him, wrapping his arms around Alex from behind. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan murmured, his breath warm against Alex's ear. Alex smiled, leaning back into the embrace. "Us," he said simply. "How far we've come. And how lucky I am to have you." Ryan kissed the side of his neck, holding him tighter. "We're lucky to have each other." And in that moment, Alex knew, no matter where life took them, they would face it together. Not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. As the sun dips below the horizon and Alex and Ryan stand together, embracing the beauty of their journey, we're reminded of something powerful. Love isn't about labels or limits, it's about courage. Courage to face who you are, to embrace what feels right, and to step into the unknown, even when it scares you. If this story resonated with you, if it made you reflect on your own relationships, identity, or struggles, then take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a moment like Alex's, where you had to confront feelings or truths you weren't ready for? Or maybe you've been in Ryan's shoes, supporting someone you care about through their journey. Let's start a conversation and remind each other that none of us are alone in this. And if this video gave you hope, inspiration, or even just a sense of connection, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Every new story we share is crafted with the same care and intention because we believe everyone deserves to feel seen and heard. Before you go, ask yourself, what's one thing holding you back from living authentically? Maybe today's the day to let go of it. Because life's too short to live anything less than your truth. Thank you for being here and for letting these stories stay with you long after the screen turns off. Until next time, take care, and remember, messy journeys often lead to the most beautiful destinations.